Maciej Mikos, welcome back to TVP World. You're watching World Talks. President Karol Nawrocki is in Washington, D.C. meeting with his American counterpart Donald Trump as we speak. And to talk about it, we're joined by Tomasz Płudowski, a professor of political science at the VIZJA University in Warsaw. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
So, we've just learned, or have been reminded, that Poland has a very special relationship with the US. Now, what's the practical aspect of this very special relationship?
Well, it is true. I mean, it was nice to listen to this. Obviously, President Nawrocki was very welcome in the White House. President Trump was very friendly. He went out of his way during the campaign, which was more than undiplomatic in supporting Nawrocki. He probably sees some parallels between himself and Nawrocki, both being outsiders and underdogs and eventually prevailing. Poland, so probably it is true that Poland is relatively small, although it is the fifth or the sixth biggest country in the European Union. And it is right there probably with countries like the UK, Israel, and so on, maybe a bit lower, but almost up there in terms of special relationships with the US. Obviously, the relationship is not equal, is not even. It's an unbalanced relationship where the US is much, much stronger, but we play an important role being on the outskirts of the EU, except that Trump doesn't seem to understand, just watching him, he doesn't seem to understand when he talks about the war between Ukraine and Russia and thinking that it was going to end soon. He doesn't seem to understand the rationale behind what Russia is doing. And he seems to think that it's just some local temporary problem and it will be easily resolved. So, which is difficult to comprehend because the US has a long history of for lack of a better word, anti-Soviet policies. And, you know, there's the history of the long telegram, the idea that only George Kennan's long telegram published in the first unofficial and then published in Foreign Affairs after the war, and Americans realizing that Russians only understand power. And he doesn't seem to understand that Putin's ambition is much larger than just this or that piece of land, and he wants Russia to go back or regain its imperialist power, to be a global power again, and especially a European power. And to answer your question, our relations mostly revolve around questions of military and energy policy, and plus recently, we still have the issue of digital tax ahead of us.
Right. Now, as you said, or maybe you didn't, but Karol Nawrocki, yeah, you said it. There was this meeting, this initial meeting between the two presidents seemed quite cordial. And as you say, Donald Trump probably sees something of himself in the Polish president. I'm wondering whether Karol Nawrocki is trying to take the podium after Viktor Orban, who is most probably he'll lose his job quite soon as the sort of a mega leader in Europe.
Well, he probably wouldn't go as far, but he's definitely anti-European. So you could, if you know about the conflict between the current government in Poland and the president, who fight over or compete over dominance in foreign affairs, even though the constitution clearly states that it is the government that conducts day-to-day business. The issue of foreign relations is divided in Poland in terms of, usually we have this tradition where the current president meets with the American president, and the prime minister is the head of the executive power and usually conducts meetings with European leaders. And it is true at this point, peace, law and justice is much closer to the US and sees the US as Poland's strategic leader, number one ally. And I think that both parties agree on that. But where they disagree, it is, like you say, rightly, the European Union. I don't think that he will rise to the position of Viktor Orban for many reasons. One is that he does not have very good relations in Europe. Two, that it is not in Poland's tradition. It is not the president that conducts meetings with European leaders, but he will push mostly towards his party, Law and Justice, winning the next elections coming in 2027. So he's weakening our unified voice internationally, which is quite important and troublesome in the current crisis, the Russian-Ukrainian war. But we have to say that there is just one foreign policy, especially towards the United States.
You said that the president traditionally does not meet with European leaders, although right before his American trip, he met with the leaders of Baltic states and Denmark. Now, I'm wondering whether he's just speaking on behalf of Poland or also on behalf of other countries of the region.
Well, he does. It's not that he refrains entirely from meeting with them, but he does not make decisions, and it actually applies to all relations. Even here, we are unlikely to hear any details about any contracts, because those decisions are usually made by the government, not the president. President is head of state, so he represents Poland abroad. So he does meet with all kinds of leaders. But the government, the prime minister, is the head of government. So he makes the important decisions, and obviously president can represent the region, especially on forums like the idea of the three C's. But they are not. They have failed to rise to the comparable position as the European Union. It seems like Trump and Law and Justice and even Russia would agree in some purposes, foreign policy purposes, and one of them would be weakening the European Union. So that would make it more difficult for them to have good relations and influence European policy.
Tomasz Płudowski, professor of political science at VIZJA University in Warsaw, was our guest this afternoon. Thank you very much, Professor. The most important thing which we failed to mention is, of course, that according to President Donald Trump, the US troops are staying in Poland, and probably for good. Thank you again. And
he did not even think, the good thing is that he did not even think that this was an issue.
Right, so, and thank you for watching, and stay with us for more here on TVP World.